Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome or welcome back, as the case might be. My name is Dalibor Petrovic. I'm the founder of the Summit Leadership Alliance and host of these TechTonic Conversations, a series of live webcasts that we have been producing and delivering to our tech-curious audiences, enterprise tech audiences, and of course, tech leadership audiences, people who are interested to learn about emerging enterprise trends, but also important topics around tech leadership. Today, Friday, February 7th, I have a very, very exciting session prepared with a truly impressive global panel of experts who are going to help us unpack a Deloitte Tech Trends 2025 trend number one. For those of you who've been following this program, you would know that this is the third year in a row that we are taking time to unveil Deloitte's global tech trends and then go into deep dive session for each of those tech trends that typically come in packages of 6. So today, we are going to be spending our time and energy to discuss what's new, what's next, what's latest and greatest in the domain of spatial computing. And to help us do that, we have assembled a truly impressive panel. I look forward to you meeting all of my guests. Let's start with Francis Yu. Francis, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate you finding time to be with me this morning. Very briefly, Francis is the business leader of Deloitte's Unlimited Reality practice and a partner principal at Deloitte US. So maybe, Francis, you can just give us a quick intro of your background, and then I'll of course pass on to introduce other panelists.
Well, thank you. And what a fantastic way to end the week, and what a fantastic way to actually start the year with the Tech Trends 2025. So as Dalibor talked about, I'm a principal partner at Deloitte, and the business that we have the opportunity to actually discuss with you today and on the topic of spatial computing is called Unlimited Reality. Is actually our business focusing in on this very domain of spatial computing simulation. So Unlimited Reality takes an industry-driven approach to solve business challenges with modern technologies, from the digital twins to augmented reality to generative AI. And by the end of the day, it's all about how do we help our clients to scale innovation across the enterprise, and how do we support them, partner with them to prove the value of innovation faster. So here, Dalibor, I am excited and privileged to be part of this panel. So I'm going to turn back to you to invite the rest of the panel.
Thank you and welcome. The next guest in the panel is joining us all the way from Portugal, João Cupeto, who is the Chief Information Technology Officer for Benfica Soccer Club. So thank you very much, João, for joining us. I'd love to hear a little bit more about who you are. So please enlighten us.
So thank you, Dalibor, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be joining you from this side of Atlantic and talking about these great sports that we call football. You guys call soccer, which
football,
is
soccer.
Also
yes.
a very interesting difference. So my name is João Cupeto, as you said. I'm CIO of Benfica. I've been with the club for 20 years, almost 20 years now, but I've been working in this industry for longer. And it's a pleasure to be part of the panel and to share with you guys what we do with technology in sports. So most of the time, when we talk about football, soccer, etc., it's always about the fans, it's always about the experience. But there's a lot of technology today behind the scenes, not only to basically help the fans to have better experiences, but also to help the teams to compete, to create better players. And so this is one of the things that we'll be discussing today. How are professional teams leveraging the power of technology to create even better athletes and better experiences and sports experience? Pleasure and very excited to be here.
Fantastic. Can't wait to hear the story. I know the story is pretty damn cool, so can't wait to hear it. Joining us next on the panel is David Randall. And David is joining us from Amazon Web Services. David is the worldwide head of go-to-market for spatial computing with Amazon Web Services. It's a delight and pleasure, David, to welcome you to the panel. Again, I'd like to give you a couple of minutes to sort of introduce yourself, who you are and what you do.
No problem. Thank you, Dalibor, and good day to everyone out there. Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you for the honor of being alongside these panelists to help share our view on what's happening within this very exciting domain. Just a little bit about me. I've spent my entire career helping organizations transform using 3D medium, spatial computing experiences, visualization. I tend to joke with folks and say I was born in 3D. That's because I've been dealing with 3D as a transformative medium my entire life, more or less, right? Even started when I was very young, building objects and building models at home to share at school. So there's something innate about tapping into humans' natural ability to think spatially. And I think what we're seeing now is the convergence and the evolution of technology to enable that, which is a huge transformation away from this very awkward translation layer that we've all had to deal with. In fact, we're in one right now, which is the translation of a room where we should be sitting together that's been flattened into 2 dimensions. And so what we're all about is helping create this new interface that brings us closer to that natural way of interacting. We can talk much more about this, which I know we're going to do, but that's a little bit about me, and really happy to bring my passion for this space here.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, David. And our final panelist today, last but certainly not least, is Nishant Raj. Nishant is a spatial and multimodal AI and data lead at Deloitte. That was a mouthful. So, Nishant, I keenly look forward to hearing a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dalibor. Good day to everyone. Really excited to be here. My name is Nishant Raj. I'm a managing director at Deloitte, and I lead our spatial and multimodal AI and data capabilities for our unlimited reality business. In my role, I focus on harnessing the power of data to create innovative solutions that really bridges the gap between the physical and the digital worlds, right? And the work I do with our clients really involves leveraging spatial intelligence and multimodal data to drive insights, to enhance decision making, and to support broader transformative projects across industries. Now, today, I'm really excited to share insights around spatial data and how data continues to be a key differentiator here, exploring how cutting-edge capabilities are reshaping efforts and use cases across sectors. So I look forward to diving into this topic with this panel and engaging in a meaningful conversation.
Well, fantastic. Thank you very much. Audience, as you can tell, we brought a world caliber here to have a meaningful conversation. And I know not only we're going to talk about the trend itself, but we're going to talk about real life stories, people who are actually leveraging and using this. And so that's going to be a very exciting part of this. Now, for those of you, again, who follow this program, you should be expecting Mike Bechtel to be joining me right now, our Deloitte's global chief futurist and lead sort of spirit behind Tech Trends. Unfortunately, last minute, he could not make it for this morning. So I will have the honor of giving everybody a bit of a context of what these Tech Trends actually are and how Deloitte goes about preparing them. We will unveil quickly what is the general framework of Tech Trends, and then we will delve into the actual topic. So if you will indulge me for a moment, I'm going to quickly share my screen to provide you with this very brief sort of overview, background of Deloitte Tech Trends. So every year for the last 16 years, Deloitte has been publishing an annual report called Tech Trends. And this report is intended to source, capture, process, and publish what Deloitte globally observes are the current and emerging enterprise technology trends that are going to be relevant to all organizations across all industries in short to medium term, so 18 to 24 months out, but with examples of organizations who are actually practicing those trends. Therefore, this is not about what might come, what is likely going to come. this is actually what is really happening and what are leading organizations already doing, leveraging modern technology. So that's really what Tech Trends are. And as I mentioned, 2025, Tech Trends 2025 is the 16th annual edition published by Deloitte. Over those 16 years, an interesting observation was made. As Deloitte was capturing all of these tech trends, some, of course, of those trends relate more to compute and compute power, like cloud computing, edge computing, and so forth. Others relate to other domains of technology innovation and evolution. A few years ago, there was a step taken back to say, hold on for a second. Are we perhaps observing a process of technology evolution as we think about progress and innovation rather than scattered revolutions of technology inventions? And when the team looked back, it apparently became very, very obvious that there actually is a method to the technology evolution over time. So the technology trends was restructured and reorganized to capture all of these trends along these three particular domains. Three of those domains, which are called elevating forces, discuss the evolution of technology trends around the interaction between humans and computers, around information processing and computation. So those three domains are referred to as the elevating forces in the Tech Trends framework, sitting on top of the other three domains of technology evolution, which we refer to as grounding forces: the business of technology, so all the aspects of evolutions and innovations that are helping technology executives more credibly, competently run their technology domain. Cyber and trust as a very important and distinct capability that we also consider it part of the grounding forces, and core modernization. So these six domains really now are the framework that is being used by Deloitte Tech Trends research team. And every year, the team is actually sensing, reflecting, documenting, and publishing a trend for each one of those six domains. So this year, in 2025, here is what are the trends discussed within each one of those six tech trend domains. So on the interaction front, spatial computing is the trend for the year. On the information front, we are going to talk about what's next for AI. On the computation front, we are talking about hardware re-emerging in the center of the conversation, and so on and so forth. And as you would have heard me from the introduction, what we are doing on TechTonic Conversations now is we are going to be doing deep dive into each one of these six trends over the period of the next couple of months. And today, I'm thrilled to be welcoming you to the first session, first deep dive of 2025 Tech Trends, the one dive into spatial computing. So with that, I'd love to invite Francis, as the leader of Deloitte's Unlimited Reality practice, to give us a little bit of a context of how Deloitte thinks about spatial computing and perhaps provide some descriptions on the trends that she is observing. So Francis, over to you.
Fantastic. So I hope that you've already picked up some of the keywords from Joel, from David, from Nishant as they introduce themselves, their journey, their personal journey, and where they focus on. It's about competitive advantage. It's about sports and athlete. It's about experience. It's about the core of that. It's about data. It's about, and there's the daily buzzword of AI, right? So at its heart, spatial computing brings the digital world closer to the lived reality. And there are many excellent framing in the industry. So I'm going to share a little bit from a Deloitte perspective. We see a lot of businesses, their business processes have a physical component, in particular in many of the industries where physical asset, be it a stadium or refinery or the heavy equipment machinery. But often information about those processes are abstracted, and the essence and the real world context and therefore insights is lost, right? So this is where we see spatial computing really come into filling the gap of help enhancing the understanding of business information around us and use that to deploy against at the top point of need to help our workforce and help operations. Now, from a technology lens, we define spatial computing as a domain of technologies as interaction, the new forms of human-computer interaction that harnesses a variety of different data types. And David touched on the 3D data, visual data, and there's geospatial data and time or temporal data, the behavioral data, to help our workforce understand and interact with the physical world in a more visual, connected, and intelligent way. Mm-hmm. We've been talking about digitizing humanizing digital for a long time, and really now we start to see the true reality of digitizing, putting humans at the center of digital. Unpacking this, we see 4 building blocks of spatial computing. We touched on the data, multimodal data, 3D content or 3D asset, true reality simulation, and last but not least, just as important, is this whole multi-modality interaction design. Now, you asked me a little bit about the trend, right? We've been tracking this for well over a decade on Tech Trend, and we have actually been tracking the whole domain of spatial computing over a decade. Just thinking about from back in 2016, the whole topic around AR, VR goes to work, to spatial web to today, right? So we're really seeing a convergence of multiple advancements and technologies. And that's what allowed us to confidently say after 10 plus years that spatial computing now is taking the center stage. So I would actually love to, for David, also, the close thought partner, to share your perspective from AWS side and from the industry, how you're seeing this.
And by the way, thank you very much for that the context and background, Francis. I want to just remind the audience, if you'd like to, this is a live conversation, as you can tell. So if you'd like to participate, if you have any questions, so forth, feel free to use the Q&A function of the screen, of the Zoom platform, and we'll be doing our best to address as many questions as we can. So thanks for that. David, over to you.
Sounds good. Thank you. And thanks, Francis. It's probably, Francis touched on something I think that we should pause on briefly, which is the framing of spatial computing and even maybe attach a definition to it. Because sadly, it's been, I think, too closely affiliated with AR, VR, which in our view is one of the modalities to experience spatial computing or spatial experiences. But, one of the reasons why we've aligned so closely with Deloitte is that we have a very shared and united vision in a core definition. And just to rewind what Francis mentioned, spatial computing harnesses really valuable data types. In fact, our customers tell us it's some of their most valuable IP. And that's represented by 3D data in their organizations, right? What things look like and how they're represented with dimension. Visual data, right? Things that cameras are picking up or sensing, and synthetic data that's created from the physical world. Geospatial data, where things are happening or where things should be happening or where things are located. Temporal or time series data, when something should be happening. Why is it happening then? Should something be happening at that point in time? Should something not be happening at that point in time? And behavioral data, which is what is actually going on with the system, the object, that location in space. These are all really interesting data types that we as people are tuned to perceive, right, on a millisecond basis, right? It's our sensory systems that perceive all of these forms of the natural world data, and we have very good spatial computers called our brains that process this and are able to do things and give us agency, right? Create context out of the world that we live in, both in digital form as well as physical form. What we're talking about here is a revolution in the ability for computers and technology to start to mimic that ability. And in many cases, offload that ability from our cognition so that we can focus on better things, more important things, different things. And so this is a much more radical transformation, in our opinion, than it's been given credit for. It's also taken longer to mature because of the dependency on core technologies as well, including compute, visualization, AI, ML, generative AI, computer vision, et cetera. So it's I just wanted to highlight that because I think Francis dotted on it, but it's important for I think the audience to realize the transformative nature of what we're discussing here. And I'll give some examples a little bit later.
Yeah. So what you're saying is really we are now at the moment where both the software capability and hardware capability has finally arrived to a point where this can now become truly meaningful, useful, usable, elegant, seamless, intelligent, right? And while we were aware of this potential for many, many years, decades, we are now in the zone. Stars have finally aligned, right?
Yeah, exactly. We have this convergence. I think we're at just such a unique point in time, right, where we have that convergence that's unlocking the ability for many folks, customers, large, small startups, to start to harness this technology to transform their business.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And so I know that we have prepared a couple of excellent stories to bring this to life. And Zhao, of course, your story will be the story that I'm super keen to hear, as I am actually also from that side of the Atlantic originally, and I also call it football, and I love the game. I think that you have probably one of the coolest tech jobs in the world. I'd love to pass the baton over to you to tell us what has been happening with Benfica on this front.
So thank you, Dalibor. I think I've been hearing a lot of good things from both David and Francis. Let me start by saying that for me it's a privilege and a personal satisfaction to see a company like Deloitte having a strategy for my industry. To be honest, it's not very common to have a company looking into sports and sports as an industry, as a vertical. And this is something that I've been looking for a long time, because there's a lot of things that we do that require the technology support. Talking a little bit about Benfica, it's important to put into perspective. So a Portuguese football club, a soccer club. We've been playing in Champions League for the last 10 to 12 years consecutively, so every year. And one of the things that we are very well known in the market, it's about developing player talent. So there are other clubs that have different business models, different approaches, but we've been very successful putting players in the market. For instance, let me give you an example. João Felix, it was a Benfica academy player, has just signed with Milan this week. So he has moved from several European clubs and now he's at Milan. He's one of the players that came from our academy. And this is where technology also comes into place. So we know that video is one of the main sources of information for sports. It's not only in soccer, but also in other sports. But only video, it's not enough. And as David was saying, with this ability of spatial computing data and everything about computer vision and AI that are showing up, it's really already productized. And what I'm about to show you guys is a product. It's something that we are already using. And this type of technology gives us, I would say, competitive advantages in several areas. One, the tactical and technical analysis of the game, but also in a very important thing in sports for us, which is decision making. And let me just share here my screen with you guys. Hopefully it's going on. Okay.
Yep.
And
we can see
what you're seeing here is the video, the normal broadcasts. But in a moment, you will see a spatial computing animation, which is made based on the real data of the game. So what you're seeing right now, let me just go back here. What we're seeing in this image is real data. This is recorded live from all the 22 players in the pitch and the ball, and we have the perfect movements of the players in the pitch. And this allows us, of course, to have the tactical analysis that we all see in television and several of these TV shows, but also it allows us to put the players in this position and having them basically understanding how to make their decisions. And this is even more important in the academy level players. So this was an example that I've just shown. It's an example of technology put into practice in a sport which is a human sport, a human activity, but that already depends on this type of data and this type of capabilities to improve. We've been doing this for several years. We started with, as all the major professional clubs, they have GPS trackers. They have a lot of wearables that record data from the players, and some of that data, most of that data, as David also mentioned, is used to create then models, AI models about the game. But this spatial capability brings things into a different perspective. We can put a player, we can put this information, and there's a first-person view of this animation that I've showed you, that we can select the player that we want to put in that position, and then he can see for himself how the player was seeing the play and what decisions were being made at that time. And this is even more important, guys, when we're talking about training. And of course, professional players, they already have a career behind them, so they are very good at this. And most of the most famous players in the market are able to make decisions based on the third or fourth play that will occur after what they're doing now. But for the younger generations, these are the type of tools that we can use to train their decision-making capability. And also to share a different story with you guys also, in the psychology area, we can also use these tools, and we use these tools to create a confrontation with other players and to evaluate how does a player react to a confrontation with his adversary. So this is where not only the real data, but the AI data can be used to simulate differences. So not just the real data that we now gather with this quality, but different scenarios that we can propose. And for instance, putting a kid that just has been faulted for a red card or a yellow card, how he will react with his colleagues and the referee. So this opens a lot of capabilities in terms of training. And again, this is something that is in production. This is something that is available today. And that is why Francis and David was saying that this is already here. So not only a trend, as we were talking, but also a reality put into production that then depends on other aspects, like if coaches are able to use this information, if they want to, if the players want to use this information or not, or if they want to be part of the experience. But what we have found out recently and more is that the younger generations, the new generations, they opt in very fast. So the guys are very keen to use this to be part of this growth that we are describing here. And so the traditional idea that we might have, especially the older ones like myself, that, oh no, we just want to go to the match and watch the match, and we don't want to be distracted by these technology things. It's not true. Not only the professional players want to use it, they use it at the academy, the youth players also use it, and there's a lot of going on with this technology and other technology in technical and tactical analysis, as I mentioned, that evolved a lot in the recent years with spatial computing, with AI, and with the modeling that we are able to now do with all the data that we've been gathering for years. But to be honest, we were not doing much with it because there was no way of representing the data in a way that the players could look at it. And now we have a way to put them in the field, put them in that position, and using the data to replicate those realities. And this is, for me, groundbreaking, and it will even be more groundbreaking when we are able to do it at training environment, not at game environment. So as technology evolves, as all these capabilities evolve, we will be able to do more and this for me is the holy grail of technology in sports, is to merge the data and capabilities that we have at the training sessions. And remember that the players train every day, but they only play once a week or twice a week. So if we bring these two worlds together in terms of data, then we really have the complete picture of the player career. And this is, for me, very, very interesting to follow and to be part of this transformation.
This is fantastic. What a great use case. And the story of Benfica actually is captured in Tech Trends. So for those audience members who would like to learn more, the actual Tech Trends report does reflect on Benfica's story that you just now heard. Joao, when you reflect on sort of how this played out for you as you were creating this, putting it into reality and starting leveraging, can you reflect on sort of what were the biggest sort of challenges that you faced? Like what would you perhaps be doing differently if you could redo this?
So it's a very good question. It's a very good question, Dalibor. So for us, for one thing, the most important thing is to have everybody on board. And I think we've been successfully doing that. So we have an holistic approach to the athlete. We talk with the psychologists, we talk with nutrition, we talk with tactical and technical physiologists, medicals, coaches. So we are able to bring them on into a table. And it doesn't happen every time. So we are always a little bit dependent on the technical team that handles the team. So there are different perspectives for the youth academy players and the professional players. Professional, of course, they are required to win. And so what we can do with them is always limited to how intrusive we are. But what I do believe, Dalibor, is that with the ability of being less and less intrusive, with these computer vision solutions, with these simulations, with being able to put this in VR glasses, okay, and being able to bring these two worlds together, the real world and there's a good recent story also in NFL about this that has been published with a player that is using this recurrently in his training process to improve. So this will happen more and more. I think there's not a great difference, or there's not something that I would say that must be done differently in the past. I think as David really mentioned, we are at the groundbreaking time now. Now we have the data, the technical capabilities, the computing power, and also the buy-in from the persons and the technical staff to use this stuff. So we can only expect better and better things in the near future.
Exciting. And what was actually fascinating for me, and of course I'm not in the business of sports. I'm on the side that just enjoys watching it. And it never crossed my mind that actually the business that you are in as well is to produce, train, and prepare the next generation of talent that Benfica will then make available and sell to other clubs. So what a great advantage to leverage this groundbreaking technology to create talent that will be, a notch better than the competition. That's very, very cool stuff.
And just adding, sorry, Dalibor, just to add a final thing to what you said. And we've been for the last, I would say, 10, 12 years doing this consistently in the market. So creating this talent. But now we have the ability to have, and Benfica has a playing model, okay, a training model. There's a methodology to this. We know what are the objectives that need to be that need to happen at several age group in the youth development. They are different from under 15s to under 17s to under 19s, and now we have the data to prove that. So the empiric ideas of the coaches, of the technicians that were selecting the talent, that were finding the talent, now have data to compare and to corroborate their decisions. So again, this is another advantage, and will be the advantage, and that's why a lot of the European clubs are also building their own academies and using all this technology and all these processes to create their own players. So not only it makes sense because we're developing the next generation of players, but we now have different tools to do it. And we don't rely, or we might not rely as much in opinions, Of course, talent is talent. There's no way of producing talent. There's no technology yet to do that. But we are able to explain the talent, measure the talent, and probably replicate some parts of the processes that in the past we couldn't do.
Mm. Awesome. Awesome. So this was a wonderful story, and I know that there are more stories from other industries to be told. So the panelists, I don't know, I would love to hear some other real live examples. I don't know, maybe David, anything interesting that you would have seen?
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, as kind of a bridging story too, because when we were doing the prep here, there was a timely, article in the media around another great example of the impact of spatial computing on sports in the case of Jaden Daniels. And people can read about this offline, obviously, but I think that might be another really relevant news blip to tie what Jaw is saying into another sport as well, in the form of American football. We just found that kind of interesting, right? I mean, just to give it, I guess, a little taste. One of the examples is using VR training, he's able to fit in about 250 to 300 extra play practices per week, which is increasing the passing yards by about 1,000 yards per year after that VR adoption. Apparently, I don't know if this is true or not too, he's focused on the simulation at about 1.5x real life speed to train his senses to be able to perceive things at a slightly faster pace, so that when in real life, he's got a bit of advantage, right? When things effectively feel like they're happening a little bit slower. So I was excited to share that story because I was impressed by that when I saw it, and it probably builds on a lot of the stuff that we just discussed. To talk a little bit about a different use case, one of kind of the silver bullet areas where spatial has really started to stand out and provide ROI to customers is around training, simulated training, and helping folks develop new skills, practice those skills, develop better awareness of a situation using the power of 3D space, simulation, persistent virtual worlds. We've had the distinct pleasure to work with one of the major Middle Eastern airlines over the past 18 months, where they came to us seeking support to help on their growth journey, right? They're basically looking to achieve their own KPIs, which are introducing new aircraft models, growing by a certain size, coverage of new destinations, new airports, which all requires recruitment, getting people trained, getting folks to staff their equipment. And so that was a very ambitious challenge, I think. Anytime somebody says we're trying to grow by 30% when you're already a large organization is pretty impactful. And so, at AWS, we have the distinct pleasure to kind of work on and focus on challenges at that scale. And so it was very exciting. What we've done ultimately is we've leveraged a whole host of spatial computing technologies to start to address that problem. The first being, how can we alleviate the limitation on physical training environments, which tend to be a bottleneck for a lot of organizations, in this case as well. Today, folks have to be flown into, or they arrive at a physical location. That location sometimes is the actual place that they will participate, not just train in, which means they have to take safety precautions. They have to shut down, production lines, you name it, right? There's a whole host of challenge around using the physical to train. And so what we did is virtualize that experience, right? Using, again, 3D visual data, location and time-based data to reconstruct and be able to simulate what it's like to go into a particular scenario, in this case, a fully functional inside of an aircraft, of an A380 in this case, so that crew can become familiar with and practice and be taught what those processes look like within that particular space, including things like food delivery service, emergency door opening, fire safety training, et cetera. What's interesting about this is that the organization we've worked with looked at this, and I really applaud this, by the way. They looked at this for more than just a technology solve for a particular use case. They said, we have an opportunity to actually change the culture in our organization, specifically because they're trying to attract, recruit, and train what is now getting close to the Gen Z and in the future, Gen A audience.
Yep.
And these are the audiences that are fully native with these, kind of gamified worlds. If you think about what's happening with the success of Roblox and Fortnite, Folks spend 2.5 to 3 hours a day, right? And I can't remember what demographic it is. I think it's between 9 and 14 years old. They're transacting in these virtual worlds. They're entertaining themselves in these virtual worlds. Some are even monetizing their experiences in these virtual worlds. And so this behavior is being developed within this generation. And enterprises need to figure out, how do we adjust our businesses to cater to this audience? Because that behavior is not going to suddenly change. Somebody who's experienced this type of modality isn't going to go back to reading PDFs and watching videos and checking boxes on a test. It's just not going to happen, right? So these organizations need to adapt to cater to this new modality. So a very interesting story there that we've had with our customer, and yeah, I think maybe Nishant, I'll hand over because you've got an interesting one too.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about Gen Zs and Joao, you talked about enabling the next gen of talent, right? So, as a side note, last night I thought I'd do a social experiment to see if I can explain spatial computing to my 10-year-old daughter. So what worked in my favor was that she had already played around with my MetaQuest headsets or my Ray-Ban smart glasses, etc. So it was not as hard as I thought it would be. But in essence, spatial computing allows us to kind of see and understand the physical world around us, right? Blending digital information into real life to enhance how we work, how we play, how we interact with our surroundings. For example, imagine her wearing her special glasses, and as she walks into the kitchen to bake some of her favorite red velvet cupcakes, the recipes appear on the air next to the oven. Or if she needs some help assembling her Lego sets for her robotics class, the glasses can show you step-by-step instructions right on the table itself, right? It's like the physical world and the digital world are merging together, right? Now, so back to some of the use cases that we see across the clients, right? I do a lot of work in the energy sector, and there is a significant value from spatial computing in areas like asset inspection and maintenance, or remote collaboration, workforce training, quality inspections, etc. Energy companies are able to conduct real-time inspections of your critical infrastructure, like your pipelines, your power plants, your wind turbines. Workers equipped with some of these specially enabled technologies or headsets now can overlay schematics into your physical equipment, thereby reducing downtime, improving accuracy of identifying issues. One of the more impactful use cases in the energy sector, based on some of the work that we've been doing with an oil and gas major, with a focus on turnaround management, right? Again, for anyone wondering what a turnaround process is, that refers to a planned periodic shutdown. Could be a total shutdown, a partial shutdown of a process unit or a plant to perform maintenance, overhaul, and repair inspections, right? And to be able to inspect, test, and replace your process material, equipment, etc. if needed. Now, some of the typical challenges that energy and manufacturing companies run into when planning turnarounds like this is that, one, today engineers have gotten used to a virtual way of working, right? If not anything, the one thing that COVID taught us was to get comfortable with a remote way of working. In other cases, it can be difficult to find the time and the budget to visit a lot of these remote sites to do inspections. Even if money is available, many of the sites restrict visitor access due to safety and security concerns. Understanding the ingress and egress routes and the amount of available space around work site or equipment in these facilities is also critical to understanding how turnaround or capital projects can be planned, right? So when it comes to effectively utilizing 3D digital twin models to achieve the digital transformation with use cases like this, it comes down to properly capturing and managing the underlying 3D and the spatial data that David Francis talked about, right? A lot of these turnarounds are really expensive too. I mean, companies spend millions of dollars, multiple times in a year to do these activities. And by being able to leverage the power of 3D and spatial data for digital twin creation as a part of the standard work when kicking off, say, a new turnaround or a capital project, these organizations are able to save significantly, right? And this is also where some of the market leading and market making capabilities in the field of spatial computing, again, that we have been working on at Deloitte, again, in very close collaboration with partners like AWS, has been able to bring in value to our companies, right? We have a flagship solution called Xreal that stands for Digital Reality Enterprise Asset Management, again, which is a cloud-based enterprise-grade visual asset management solution that can really help you centralize and streamline the ingestion, storage, and management of visual assets, right? And what's often missing in today's environment that some of these spatial solutions like Dream can do for us is to be able to link the broader enterprise data sitting in, say, your planning, or your PLM systems, your ERP systems to these visual data assets, right? So a lot of these solutions, if I look at the image of a 3D asset like a pump, the 3D image by itself is just dumb data, right? So unless I'm really able to overlay that 3D image with the operational data from my ERP system, from my PLM systems, that's when the true value comes in, right? And that's where organizations are moving to, with that contextualized environment on top of the spatial data, to be able to add more value to some of the use cases that we come across.
Fascinating, absolutely fantastic and fascinating. We have a number of questions coming in from the audience. One actually really good one is, so we've heard now examples and use cases from sports industry, from airlines, from energy sector, oil and gas. So heavy resource heavy industries, and use cases around training, around inspections, around design, around improvement in sports performance. What other industries, and this is open to everyone, what other industries do you see experiencing earliest and most significant impacts from spatial computing? And perhaps what signals indicate that company is kind of ready to start adopting and piloting this?
Yeah, so let me just actually, I wanted to just one is just to highlight a key theme and a key word in Joao, your story, your narrative, and a key theme across all the panelists, the stories, is it is now. And this is a like tech trend. We're not talking about future in future years. We're talking about a lot of the technologies which has been in development, hard at work, in deployment over the past decades. And now with the convergence of bringing all the technology components together, now we start to see a real new focus and enterprise value, right? So going back to the, I was going to share quite a few stories in financial services industry, in other industries, but I think consistent, just to going back to more abstract level, going back to the question, which is a fantastic question from the audience. In other industries, we see two types, right? One type is, as David and I in our working to get the collaboration, always say there's a 3D native type of businesses, and the sports is one of them. There's and some of the audience touched on the defense, military. Nishan talked about the energy power utility, and there's manufacturing is another example. Automotive. Those are industries where understanding the physical, contextual information about a physical asset, be it plant, be it equipment, be it a stadium, is incredibly important, or be it athlete movements, right? Incredibly important. And with that, we're seeing tremendous amount of adoption across those industries and across different sectors. And that is when we did, just bring back some data points, right? When Deloitte did a metaverse in manufacturing, did a study, and where we surveyed hundreds of the enterprises and interviewed many of the head of manufacturing, COOs, the folks in operations, folks who run operations. You know what? I was delighted to hear that 90% of surveyed respondents have deployed one or more industrial metaverse or complex spatial computing simulation use cases. And over a third of them have already deployed almost 10 plus and looking to enterprise scaling, right? So that is a transformative moment in time across multiple industries. The second type of businesses, we call them not so much 3D native, but incredibly digital asset heavy. Think about media and entertainment. Think about the whole trends that's happening around virtual production, digital production. This is where we start to see some of the leaders are truly extending the core IP, creative IP that they have, and extending into a highly engaging medium powered by cloud native asset management, content management, powered by the high performance compute capabilities to start really transform the pre-visualization, the post-production processes. And what does that mean? It means the cost of innovation is lower down significantly. The cost of production is lower down significantly. And you know what? As I love media and entertainment industry, right? As an audience, I get to, as a consumer, I get to enjoy a lot more creativity out of the production process, right? So those are kind of saying, I just want to hopefully that this answer the audience question that this is so prevalent today, and it's now.
What I love, you introduced something that really sort of triggered me here, separating the industry into 3D native, like physical industries, where this technology is deployed on physical assets that happen to be in some movement, whether those assets are people or widgets or buildings, physical assets, and then think about, I guess, non-physical, virtual, digital asset heavy industry. It's such a wonderful way to think from these two perspectives. In that category, non-physical industry would be financial services, for example, right? That's where that would fit. What I would be curious to know is there an example from like how would a financial institution leverage this kind of capability? Is there a use case there?
Absolutely. So for those of you on LinkedIn, I want to give the client Vanguard a shout out, right?
Vanguard, yeah.
Pioneer in the space. And one of the particular area is there's a whole trillion dollar wealth transferring that's happening in around the globe. And we talked a lot about the younger generation who are 3D native, right? Now, imagine the wealth management industry today, and as you explain, we're still very much like Excel spreadsheets of if you do this, you see that number. Like numbers are interesting, but it's very conceptual, it's very abstract. But wealth, happiness, security, all those are very personal stories, personal narrative, right? So our team had the privilege of working with Vanguard around a whole campaign called or a whole initiative called Envision Your Financial Future. Now, one of the specific area is experience your retirement early as a key theme. And how we did was we worked with Vanguard and designed a highly engaging, instead of numbers, we actually translate into wealth garden to help the future generation envision what does financial future mean. And in that context, also, there's a big part of around financial education equity, right? A visual-led way of learning as opposed to a spreadsheet, numbers-led way of learning appeal to a much broader audience. An interactive way of helping the future generation going through what does that mean? And underpinning a lot of that is data analytics and AI. Machine learning is about help them as they go through the wealth garden, go through the experiences, help them to also confront some of the choices. And as I think, Joel, you talked about that also, right? And those help the engagement level in a very different way. So some of the impact, the unprecedented engagement, 99% of the users who experienced that said they would recommend it. And driving the conversion, 95% of the users are really motivated to actually act on the conversion and taking the action, right? So, and that also has a tremendous impact on the brand itself. And, almost all the participants have started to see the brand Vanguard in that study, in that particular project case, in a very different way as innovation, right?
As you're describing this, what's in my mind is the Star Trek holodeck. It's almost like you're describing an environment. It's like this is pretty cool, right? That's what was in my mind as you were describing what was happening. You're painting the space in pixels, helping visualize a better future for this particular client as they think about their retirement and wealth management, kind of, right?
And the choices they faced with.
Yeah.
That visual-led way of working, right? We've heard across segments. And I think that's what you're summarizing, Dalibor. It's right. This transition from trained experience in spreadsheets, in raw data, in specific dashboards for equipment, you name it, right? This one-dimensional and two-dimensional data systems, we are now able to free or unlock into that more humanized medium, which just helps people understand things better, right? That gives people agency. Awesome. It gives people that access to information.
This is effectively the next natural step towards simplicity of interaction between humans and computing, making it more like while the complexity of underpinning technology increases, the actual outcome of it is more simplification for those who are consuming. And that is right along that trajectory that we are on, to simplify the interaction between humans and machines. I have one last question. I'm cautious we are coming to time. So maybe Francis, you can kick us off. What are your clients finding to be key challenges? What about scaling this?
So, recognize of time, I now want to make sure all of our panelists have a chance to kind of give their quick top line answer to this great question. So, one of the key challenge is always around how do we scale, and scaling complexity is around in terms of the data fragmentation. So, I would go back to by the stating that whilst there's a number of really amazing downstream value use cases to scale where we see the leaders drive differentiation is really the invest into the foundation of sorting out that spatial data, 3D data pipeline challenge. So,
Joao, I would double down on that too, right? I mean, probably the most, for all these fascinating use cases that we're hearing, the most common and overarching theme is data, right? The ability to capture, process, and interpret these vast amounts of spatial data. And data truly acts as the bridge between your raw spatial information and all these meaningful insights that really help you scale, right? And as all these spatial computing really starts to take center stage, I think data is not just a supporting element, but truly becomes that differentiator. And I think that is a key element that organizations need to pay attention to as they look to scale.
Wonderful. Joao, anything you would like to add? And then we can wrap it up with David.
No, for sure. For us, a professional team, as in all sports, in terms of scale, what we aim for is stability, real accuracy in the data, because one thing is to have this only for one game, another thing is to have this for the entire season. And one of the things that creates more damage in the relationship between technology and the sports directors and technical staff is if some of these solutions simply don't work in a specific game. So this is one of the things. The second one is, of course, tied to the first thing that I said about Deloitte and other companies, major companies like AWS. So we being a club and being very immersed in our own environment, what we seek in terms of scale is to be able to access other projects, to understand what's going on in the market, what can be also leveraged to our own industry, to our own reality. And so the scale comes with the ability to be in webinars like this and talking with people like you that are leading these type of initiatives all over the world and bringing this knowledge inside the clubs and being able to benefit from it.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. David, take us home.
I think I'll simplify, but it doubles down on what Francis and Nishant were saying. You know, we've worked very closely actually on this problem set. In fact, Nishant mentioned an actual solution available that directly addresses this problem. But what I would urge organizations to do is liberate their spatial data, right? That's step number one. The better you can understand, harness, and unlock, fill gaps in your spatial data, which I defined a bit earlier, if you want to rewind in the call for the recording. That's step number one, right? And then once you do that, it becomes much more obvious how you can start to serve business challenges, use cases in the organization, find endpoint solutions, whether it's training, virtual facilities, product preview for configurators. The list goes on. right? But you can only know what you can serve once you have that data managed and have access to scaling access to that data.
Thank you very much. No surprise, data is the gold here as well, right? Data is the gold. Francis, Joao, David, and Nishant, thank you so much for your time and wisdom. For the audience members, we'll wrap it up here. Please remember to join me next Tuesday, February 11th. We'll go into deep dive on Deloitte Tech Trend number 2, which is all about artificial intelligence. With that, have yourselves a lovely Friday afternoon and have yourselves a lovely weekend. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.